maybe other people will join us. We've got a few apologies from Councillor Paul May and Councillor Anna Box. Any other apologies that we're aware of? No? Okay. So welcome to the Chew Valley Forum. I chair it, Heather Cluett, then Vice Chairs. So we're looking forward to hearing our speakers this evening, especially young people at Chew Valley School. Thank you. And obviously there'll be time for questions at the end of each presentation discussion. So please feedback in as much as you can. And also just anything you want to note to get carried forward into the subsequent notes that go out, just write it on a piece of paper or post it or whatever, and we'll make sure that happens. We've got a signing in sheet, and I can see it's being passed around, so that's great. So our first session is a police update. We were expecting PC Carrie, but I think we've got PC Katie, and I don't know your surname, Katie. Sorry.
No worries. My name's Katie. I am the PCSO supervisor based at Radstock Police Station.
Fantastic. So over to you for the next
Hello.
10 minutes update.
So I'm guessing you guys are aware that the kind of your area is split into two kind of separate areas that are covered by two different police stations. So obviously you have Sergeant Rob Turner, who covers the kind of Chew Valley, Pensford, Kinksham area, and then at Radstock we cover kind of the parishes Clutton, Temple Cow, Cameley, East West Harptree. So I'm responsible for that bit. I manage the PCSOs based here at Radstock alongside Sergeant Lee Humphreys, who manages the police officers. So I haven't done one of these before, so you have to forgive me. Steve, the beat manager, has given me some crime stats for our side of the area, and I will get Rob to email you over his crime stats, but I had a quick look earlier. I'm just not 100% sure of his areas, and they are very similar. So there is nothing that stands out as a completely different number. So overall crime stats for our parishes are good. The last 6 months, we have 38 violence against the person offences reported. That's kind of our biggest area that we deal with in the police. So that can go from anything from physical assaults, harassment, DV offences. So for the large area that we cover, 38 is for 6 months is a relatively good number. We have 8 theft reported in 6 months, and that again can encompass anything from bilking, so theft of fuels, theft from shop, online fraud. Kind of, there's lots encompassed in that theft element. So that was only 8. 16 arson and criminal damage. Again, that's anything from major to minor. So it sounds like scary arson, but it could just be, you know, damage to a fence, and ranging from anything from that. 10 vehicle offences. Again, that covers kind of major to minor, so theft from vehicles and then theft of vehicles, obviously 2 different ones, and anything in the middle. We've got, I can send these figures over, by the way, in an email so that you can share them if you need to. 6 public order offences, 6 burglaries, and that includes residential and business breaks. That's something that we're really focusing on Avon and Somerset at the moment. Burglary rates have really gone up. I'll focus on that a little bit in a minute to say kind of what we're doing to tackle that. But yeah, 6 in 6 months is on the whole it is good. We've got one robbery offence, and again that can be from something like a minor one to one that's involved, you know, with lots of complexities. And then miscellaneous crimes against society. So that's just other things that don't fit into the boxes of above. And then the other thing Steve sent over is the antisocial behaviour. So in 6 months, in 6 month period of 18 incidents classified as antisocial behaviour. Now, 80% of them are neighbour related crimes. So anything that doesn't fit into the other categories, i.e. like harassment, so violence against a person, will be recorded as antisocial behaviour. So that could be like a neighbour dispute over anything, or neighbours not getting on, or parking. That often will fall under antisocial behaviour as well. So on the whole, for our side of the Chew Valley, it's looking good. So obviously I mentioned burglary being a real focus at the moment. We've had a rise in Asian gold burglaries. So we've done some preventative work in terms of we visited all the local takeaways that we have in the area. We've given a lot of information about how to protect their homes. Even as Somerset as a whole have kind of created a team of people that are looking into all of these burglaries at the moment and if they're connected. So it's quite a new thing that's kind of been recognised as occurring. So it is a very much work in progress. From a local level, we are now visiting all victims of burglary from a PCSO perspective, offering crime prevention advice. We're also going to make, we've got letters that we'll be doing drops on all residents of that house that has been targeted to make them aware, and some more crime prevention advice as well. So there is stuff going on in the background. Yeah, is there any questions? Is there anything else you'd like from me?
Yep, I think we've got a question.
Has there been any road traffic incidents or accidents? Are they reported in these numbers? With the new speeds, especially that's been introduced?
So road traffic accidents don't come under the crime statistics because they're not recorded as a crime on our systems. I'm not sure if there's a way that I can pull them off. There would be on a different system, but if you'd like that, I can get that done after and sent through for you. Is there a particular area that you're concerned about, or is it as a whole?
So it's in the villages where the restrictions on the speed have changed in the last 6 months.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that I think the police speed person was able to do at one of our previous meetings was to give a number of figures where motorists have been caught exceeding the speed limit. So we can certainly ask for an update on those.
Is that from the Community Speed Watch?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, they are the best people because they have access to this separate system that we don't have access to. But they can definitely do that. But I'll ask the question too and see what we can get back for you.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Any other comments or queries?
Question on
Sorry.
That's right.
Maya.
Hello, I've got a question. Is your data split into age categories? I'm just thinking of our young people, so I guess anyone between sort of 16 and 21, 25 usually falls into a category. And if there is there anything that's standing out as a trend, as something that we can look into?
We can drill our data down into age group. I haven't done it now because it's on a Word document, but again, I will pull it off and see if there's anything. Off the top of my head of things we're dealing with at the moment, which is a new trend, which we're starting to do some stuff around, is young people driving motor vehicles without the relevant document, so i.e. not being old enough. Not so much around your area, although I'm sure it will drift over that way as word gets round, but we're doing some proactive work with child social care and our early intervention team around that. We've seen a rise in children taking like parents' cars overnight whilst they're sleeping and just going for a little ride, which is just definitely a trend that has happened over years and years, and it does come back round, but we're just trying to be really proactive about what we do to stop that. And with all these extra teams in social care that we now have, we seem to be able to pull our partners together quite quickly and come up with a rapid response. So it's, again, very new. Last couple of weeks we're really delving into the detail, but we're going to be working with some schools. Chew Valley School will be contacted and trying to get some preventative stuff around that as well. So that's definitely one highlight that I know at the moment is a trending theme, shall we say.
Thank you.
David.
How are the sort of I'm not sure what it is. Is it PSPO, public space
Yes.
protection order, how is that progressing?
So Rob sent me an email about that earlier on. Let me find it. I believe he's got, I've got so many tabs open on my computer. He said, Justina, who's our ASB coordinator, and Rob have the next 2 days to write and liaise with Banes to progress the PSPO for the lakes and the surrounding area. So ongoing. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you. Any more questions, comments people want to make? I'm aware that Sergeant Rob will be convening a Teams meeting across the Chew Valley on February the 24th. So that gives an opportunity for residents, parish councils, businesses to actually have a direct dialogue with him. And it usually, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's a bit longer or shorter. But can we send that date and the Teams meet out?
Yeah, of course.
Great,
yeah.
thank you.
And the follow-up, can't we, Mark?
Certainly can, yep.
Yep, that's great, thank you. Okay, so if there are no more questions, thank you very much, Katie.
No worries.
That's been really helpful. Thank you.
Would you like me to stay in case more questions pop up, or do you just want to email them over if you've got any?
It's entirely up to you. We can certainly email questions.
Yeah, if you've got anything else,
if-
email them over, and
Yeah.
and then I can. It's very busy on the radio tonight, so I can get.
Yeah, that's
I can
fine.
go and lay a
No,
hand.
we understand. No, we will email any queries across to you. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Heather, could I just say that Sam is en route here, and she said she'll be here about 6:30, 7 o'clock. I think she's got caught up in traffic.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
listening.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's very clever.
I know.
Mm.
I don't think we've got an update from the fire service, have we?
No, nothing again from them.
Okay. So if we can move on to Jackie, who's going to really bring us up to date in terms of CIC and sustainable travel. And I think lots of people will have seen the article in the Chew Valley Gazette.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Certainly
That
put a
is-
big enough picture of a bus on it.
Yeah.
So hello, I'm Jackie Head. I'm one of the people who's part of the Chew Valley CIC Sustainable Transport Partnership, bit of a mouthful, who bid for money, BSIP money as it was called, and are running the 99 bus and the X91 bus. And Elaine is a colleague on that partnership as well. David is part of a comms group on that group. So there's people in the room who know about this. And obviously it began in work we did on the Chew Valley Area Forum working group.
Mhm.
So I'm here just to give a bit of an update. And I don't want to overdo my time, so I'll just notice what the time is now. I think most people will know that the services have been running since 2024. They've been running on this bus service improvement plan, BSIP money, and that runs out at the end of March. So the first thing is a bit of good news, which is that we've been allocated some funding from the main sort of bus budget to continue the routes until July this year. So a little bit of breathing space. And that's true of pretty much all the West Local routes. There were some that weren't continued because they were not productive. But the vast majority of the West Local routes have been continued. And the West Link service, which is also paid for from that original BSIP money, is also being carried on until the end of July. I think a lot of people in the Chew Valley will be delighted and also nervous about that state of play, because they'll remember the 672 bus, which was supported bus route. They'll remember that our group fought like crazy to get it extended, got an extension of 3 months, and then it was cut. So that kind of reality is, believe you me, sitting right there in my forward vision the whole time at the moment. That an extension to July doesn't necessarily mean that these are going ahead. There are some positive things that we are pleased to be able to say. One is that the money that has come from government is a 3-year settlement. So from April 2026 for 3 years, there is a bus settlement, which means that whatever the authority, WECA, decide will be their spending of that grant has the potential for being in place for 3 years. And that in bus terms is a long contract. So that's the good news of it. The less good news of it is that the amount that is being provided in that bus grant is less than it was with the BSIP money and the grant before. So there is a drop in income, and so they've got to look for where can we cut, what can be cut back, what can be got rid of. And their most common thing that they use for that is cost per passenger. In other words, to put a person on this bus, every person you put on the bus reduces the cost per passenger. Every time you see a bus going around empty, that's a massive cost to offset. In terms of our 2 routes, one of the things we've been able to do because of the nature of the grant funding is every 6 months we could make a change to those routes. And I wanted to just show an example of that. This is the original bus route of the 99 bus, which we thought looked a bit like a cat, so we called it the cat. And it was a figure of 8 and it went all the way around here and so on. Actually, we changed it so that it became just a loop that went from Ubley and round the top and back again, made its way out to Pensford and Pueblo, which meant that there was the chance for people to connect to services along the A37 and thus get to other places that way. And that was a difficult decision to make, but it was clearly needed because the 99 was not carrying enough passengers and we needed to improve the cost per passenger, so we shortened the route in that way. One of the things our group has now asked for is for that to be changed again. And this time it will mean that it runs from Ubley in a straight line up to Pensford here and back again and through and back again. Yeah. And the reason for that is because that will be cheaper still to run, and therefore the cost per passenger will improve just because of that. Also, we think it will be a more useful route. When we put in the loop, we made some mistakes on that one, and Bill is one of the people who knows that it now becomes really difficult to get from Shoemaker to Pensford when it used to be really easy. If this goes ahead, which we hope it will in April, then that will solve that problem. It will also make it easier for kids to get to school. So people in Chewstoke will be able to get to school on the bus. I know it's not far, but you know, when it's wet and horrid, it's a good route. And people in Stanton Drew will be able to get home again, which at the moment is one of the problems with the loop. So as it stands, the routes were put out to tender by WECA, and the tenders had to be back in, I think it was on the 31st of January. So they're now considering the tenders. In terms of the X91, as we understand it, they put out the route to tender exactly as it is now. So the four routes a day, Saturday evening and Saturday service, as well as Monday to Friday. That's what we believe was tendered. In terms of the 99, as we understand it, there were 2 routes tendered, slightly different to what we thought. We were informed it would only be our there and back proposal, but actually the present loop was also put out to tender. So I don't know why. We explained problems with it, but it could be that we end up with the 99 being exactly the same as it is now. It could be that we get that change in April, and I hope common sense prevails. And we've certainly been on the phone and, you know, lobbying like crazy to get that as a there and back route. So from April to July, we know where we stand pretty much, hopefully. Because it's a tendering process, we don't know who the operator will be that will operate that. Obviously, at the moment, it's the Big Lemon. We've worked very closely with them. We have this partnership group where we meet with them monthly and we look at stats, etc., and we bring up complaints or issues or feedback, positive feedback. From April, it could be a different operator. So we might not have the same access to discussing those sort of issues between April and July. So the Big Lemon have said that if they win the tender, they want to continue the partnership working because they value it. So from our group's point of view, we may have less contact and less opportunity to influence from April onwards. We'll continue to lobby like crazy, but we won't be in the room with the officers in the same way. I think the other thing that we've been arguing for very, very strongly, and we've evidenced through our Great Big Bus Survey, is the decarbonisation value and the social value of these buses. And it's fair to say we've made that argument has been heard and is being recognised, but it's much more difficult to quantify. It is quantified actually in our survey, but it's not quantified for other bus services, and so it's difficult for them to make comparisons about that. And the how much it costs is the bottom line, but actually affects everything. However, on the plus side, there are two documents which were both produced in 2020, and then one was updated, I think, in 2021. This one is just about to be updated again, the West of England bus strategy. Oh, wrong one, that's our document. Those two documents. The bus strategy is just about to be updated. The local transport plan you'll probably know about. Within both of these documents, there is a clear message about rural buses being important. And one of the things that when we met individually with the mayor, our group met with her and with the head of bus operations. And one of the things she said in that meeting was everyone in the West of England rural area should have access to buses to get them to work, education, medical appointments, that should be the baseline. And she said, I don't care where you live, you should be able to do that by bus. We're hanging on to that for dear life and pointing out the fact that 99 can get kids to school and back. You know, it's set up, the timings are set up for the school run. The X91 can get kids to Bristol to get to education opportunities in Bristol. So we're fighting on that front, if you like. There's also quite a bit in the bus bill from national government about the value of the social value of rural transport, and we've really shown that case through our Great Big Bus Survey. It's well understood that these buses do meet those messages. So I think those are some hopeful things. I think in terms of what can you do now that might make the difference between us getting these buses carrying on after July and us not getting these buses carrying on after July. I think there's one clear thing that will have an impact more than anything else. Get on a bus. Mm. If you haven't tried them already, try them. You know, look at next week in your diary and work out whether there's anywhere that you could go using one of the buses, or maybe one bus one way, one bus back. You know, be creative. I bet there's something you can get to on that basis. And if there isn't, why not arrange something just for the purpose of using the bus? You know, why don't you go to Chew Valley Lake and have fish and chips and do it on the bus? You know, why don't you go into Bristol and see an exhibition at the RWA and do it on the bus? Make a choice. You know, you're part of the solution or not. So you individually can do a lot. Also, think about all the people that you touch palms with every day. Everybody that you connect with, everybody that you meet in your work or you meet through your social life. How many of those could you influence about the bus? Well, two quick ways. Wear a badge. And then if somebody will say, what's that about then? And then explain. Yeah. Share a pen. I've just put them on the table. Share a pen and then tell them what this is that you're using. Make it in part of your normal conversation that these buses exist. They're at risk. They need more people on board. I think apart from that, if you have any connection to business in the area, then we have a campaign running called Bus Friendly Business. And we have some posters here you can take away with you that can go in the window of a business saying, we are a bus friendly business. And basically what it means is that your business will maybe carry the timetables for the bus, maybe just agree to talk to people about the bus, maybe on your business or on your website, you'll put something that says, you know, you can get here by bus. This is how you do it. Or it may be some businesses offer money off if you turn up by bus. But you don't have to do that. You can just be a supporter in some other way. It's raising the profile, raising the knowledge of it. And if you're not in a business, but you're in some kind of organisation where you have the power to influence, and I'm looking at the head teacher, but I'm also looking at others. You know, if maybe you're part of an organisation or a social group or a volunteering group where you have some power of influence, why not use it? You know, why not get the next meeting of the WI to go there by bus? You know, why not get to chat going on a trip out on the bus? Whatever it might be, think about the places that you're connected into, because what we do between now and July really matters. It's a real risk that we'll lose these amazing services. Let's not let it happen. Let's be part of that kind of positive solution. And the final thing is that we're hoping to run an event. We're just in negotiation with WECA about it at the moment. The idea being that they might use it for consultation purposes and we might use it for kind of passing on information. We've got a tentative date in our minds, which is the 28th of March, not confirmed, venue not confirmed, but just kind of hold that date somewhere in your mind as a potential day you might want to encourage people to be part of. You can find us on social media. Bus Transition in the Chew Valley is a group with about 600 people in it. We have a membership scheme which has a number of people in it. Let me know if you want to be part of that. It's free. And we're on Insta as well. So follow us, spread the word, get on board. Anyone got any questions? I purposely didn't take up all my time so that there was time for questions.
David has got one.
Yeah.
When do you think we'll actually know about the 3-year funding?
When will we
Give us
know
any
about
clues?
3-year funding? Yeah. A very fine question.
Yes. Sorry.
Well, for a bus service to run from 1st of August onwards, you know, in other words, there to be no break in service between the two, it has to be, there's a period of time by which it has to be registered, which is normally absolutely cannot be changed. That said, the services right now for April are only being registered now, which is after that date. So maybe there's flexibility, but that would suggest that we would know at least a month ahead and probably more. But it may be that in Banes within your councillors, you might know way before we do.
Maybe.
So,
or maybe
keep talking if you can.
maybe given a wink.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
But we're in contact. I mean, I'm in weekly contact with officers from WECA. We're certainly asking them that we know as soon as we can know, because obviously for future planning, you know, if the head teacher wants to tell his next year's year group about it, he's going to need to do that in July, isn't he? Not in, it's too late to pass on that information later. And it's those beginnings of year where change can really happen. You know, somebody can get a habit going of, I go to school on the bus, you know. Yeah.
May I ask our younger folk one question? Have you ever used Westlink?
Westlink, no. The other services, the 99, I've used it quite a lot. I was going to sort of mention that later and kind of bring it up.
Yeah.
Because it's something that I use relatively regularly. I definitely did at the start of when it first came about back in September, September 2024.
Yeah.
And it was my method of getting to where I live in Bishop Sutton, and it was the perfect kind of school route, and it's kind of how I got to and from school.
Yeah.
Until then, friends started learning how to drive, and I've started learning how to drive, and then that's what's stopped it.
Yeah.
But even so, I regularly on kind of Saturdays, I tend to go into Bristol to either meet friends or quite like working in the library and things like that.
Yeah.
And again, it's just, I will always kind of get the 99 from Bishop Sutton and kind of 8, and then get that to Pensford and then get the connecting onto Bristol.
Yeah.
And so it is a service that I definitely use regularly, but I would say that it's not one that I know others using as much. And then for Westlink specifically, I've never really used a Westlink. more unfamiliar with that kind of area of the transport. Yeah.
Have you ever used the X91 to get to Bristol?
Funnily enough, I was having a chat with the bus driver on the 99 the last time I was on, and he mentioned it, and it wasn't. I don't think I was aware that it could go straight to Bristol. So I've then looked into it and saw that obviously it did.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting. So I'll definitely. I think I was thinking I'll try that on the next time.
Yeah.
But again, I guess that maybe that's another thing, is just kind of awareness. And that's kind of another thing I was maybe going to mention, is just I don't think people are, or especially the young like us, I don't think we're aware of how much it can be used and how kind of beneficial it can be. And I think kids nowadays, they don't necessarily want to go searching for that information either. Like they want either like an app to just tell them the quickest way, or they want to just ask their parents. And so I think like going onto the websites and tracking your route is great. You can obviously do it because I do it, but I don't think it's something that most kids would think to do, or would know to do, or would want to do necessarily.
Yeah, that's great. I'd just like to say we did a lot of work in the school. It was brilliant. We were given access to the climate group and worked with them to work on kind of assemblies that we did in the sixth form, and also on a film that we've produced so that people could complete the big bus survey. We got a brilliant response from that big bus survey from young people. It was fantastic how many replied. What I would say is that I think maybe we need to do this every year in the school. Like we need to come in with the next cohort of sixth formers, if you like, to say, okay, how are you getting to school, or how are you going to, maybe the year below, you know, how are you going to get to school when you're in the sixth form?
How are you going to get to Bristol to go and see a film?
Exactly.
Whatever it is you do.
Well, we're very up for that, and perhaps we'll have a conversation with Gareth about how we could.
Okay, I mean, just raise Westlink.
Yes.
Westlink's massively used by school members, but that's predominantly South Bristol community getting out here. Yeah. Because that has been a gap, that was a walking weight gap for us. So that I take on board Nancy's comments completely with that one, but actually Westlink is more used to people getting into the valley rather than people in the valley getting.
Indeed. And I think that's one of the challenges with it, is that because it's so well used for that school run, it's actually quite hard to get a Westlink at those times. Well, I don't think you can actually elsewhere in the valley, because it, you know, it's being used effectively for that school route. And we have sort of raised that and said, you know, how can you meet the needs of school, but also meet the needs of other people who want to book a ride.
I just say with Bishop Sutton, you're the only village in the Tube Valley that I've got a live information board outside the post office. So, you know, which is, you know, accessible for people with, you know, visual impairments, and is voice activated. Got a button. No, I pressed all the buttons when I saw it. And the post office is one of the business. The Butter by Bus campaign. They're one of the businesses that have really signed up to our buses in the post office and the Bishop Sutton, and they hold both timetables and are willing to talk to people about buses because they use them themselves as well. But it's great that you use it. I think you know, sometimes you've got to think about Westlink as being you know, a way of getting around as well, you know. So, you know, the app for Westlink, which you can book a one-way or a return journey, but you could also use the X91 and the 99 in conjunction. So, you know, the majority of villages that both these buses are serving, there are connections between them, so you can get onto one and come back on the other, you know. But as you say, it takes a long time to get these buses in people's minds, you know, and you're the biggest, you know, way of kind of getting that out there in terms of using the bus and sharing that experience. So, you know, well done. You know, you're the biggest marketeer we've got. We don't have a huge amount of funding to really promote the buses, and certainly from now onwards, you know, that funding won't be there to get that knowledge. The 376 has been around for like 40 years or something crazy, you know. So more, I think.
Like the school run is such a big part of it, like that moment in September that you talked about, because that's when it was then that it was first bubbling up. And so my parents, because there was so much advertising for it, look at this new thing, my parents saw that and went, oh, well, this is the alternative then to having to then, because obviously then when you get in sixth form, you have to pay for the school provided buses. And so they went, oh, well, let's do this. This is more cost effective. This is better. And I think that was because that came at the time when it was new and it seemed like it was like everywhere. And I kind of had there was a solid group of like 6 of us in my year that were all in Bishop Sutton and all took that bus. But then, like I said, we then moved on and started driving. And as far as I know, that uptake hasn't then been taken on by the next year.
I think that's right. I think that's right.
I think there's just not that, there wasn't, because then, like you say, we then got into the habit of it. And so even if then we were just then, it was the way we got to school. So I think that's like that idea of at the start of September, we've really kind of bumping that awareness of it for the net and making it as viable an alternative as paying for the school buses, which it like absolutely is.
Yeah, and I think there's something about the culture that we communicate about the value of learning how to use buses. I mean, that's a lifelong skill. And many of the young people who come to the school will live in cities and won't bother to have a car. You know, they might have learned to drive a car because, you know, you like to do that when you're 17, but they might never use a car, you know, and actually it's much, much more useful that they know how to read a timetable and get on a bus and hail a bus and all those things. So yeah, let's teach the habits, and not just to the young. Let's reteach them to people of all ages.
This is true.
Jackie, you've got a question on screen actually from Mia.
There's one over there as well. Yeah.
Sorry.
Hello, I'll just be quick, but I'm from Banes Council. I'm going to present on my offer later, but what I want to do is to offer promotion of your bus services across our social media platforms as well, because it's something we're identifying as something that we would like to help with as well, and I'll go into a bit more detail. But Jackie, I think I do have your contact details, so maybe we could talk about the bus office, the bus friendly business offer and how we can promote that as well.
That would be fantastic. Thanks, Mia. And Mark can make sure you've got my contact details. Yeah. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Sorry, Jackie.
So just a question about whether you have any positive experience of, you know, the kind of Kids Go Green initiative that's been run by the mayor to describe the thing, and that's targeted on the school holidays.
Yes.
And I think it's been very positive in bringing kind of footfall to the high street and all lots of things. But I was kind of interested in whether targeting that kind of initiative, not necessarily for the holidays, but for the start of the school year.
I think that would be superb. I mean, what we've noticed on the stats is that the numbers on the buses, both buses, went up during that period. We haven't got a way of knowing what age people were, but we just noticed there was a bulge, and you'd expect the opposite in a school holiday. So I think it's been a successful route. Obviously, if we have more buses, we could benefit from it more. People in cities benefit from that much more. But I think it has been useful in that way.
I think we're sort of running out of time a bit. I'm sorry, I was just going to say one more question from you.
Sorry, you've got one of the young people.
All right, sorry.
Maybe we can do when we go out to speak and interact, that's easier for people.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Bill.
Well, thank you for allowing me to speak. I feel I'm preaching to the converted, but may I re-emphasize something that Jackie said? We old people, we're very timorous, we're very nervous. It's very frightening for people to get on a bus. I couldn't agree more. It takes time for people to learn. Oh, we can learn the bus. You don't do it this week. They don't do it this month. It might take a year. But so please carry on. But may I say, the Bristol one, the Bristol timetable now is very useful indeed. I shall be using it to go to a medical appointment next week. And it works. And that's marvellous. And I was most heartened at the possibility, only short term I fear, but the possibility that from Chew Magna, which is one of the bigger villages of the valley, of course, that we could get to Pensford.
Yeah.
If only we could get to Pensford, because you've heard me say this before and you'll be tired of me saying it, then we can get to Wells. And if that is a possibility, that is a great help. So thank you all for doing that. But finally, and dare I mention it yet again, and you've heard me say it again, there used to be a bus from the valley, from all the various villages in the valley, to go to Pensford. It was on a Tuesday, and it was very well used. It would almost not have needed a subsidy because there were so many people on it. Is there any possibility that we can get over this great gulf? It's all to do with the Cheddar, or Somerset being a gulf between North Somerset and Somerset.
Yeah.
And can we ever get across the Wells and get this on a one bus from the Chew Valley to the Wells? I should stop. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Very appropriate comments. Really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jackie. So if people have got other questions or comments, we'll make sure that Jackie's email address is in the notes, so you'll be able to do that separately. Okay. We're now moving on to what is the main theme for this evening, although we've already started moving into it really. And that is children and young people, including early intervention support schemes, which are available across Bath and North East Somerset, that help to tackle inequalities and enable children and young people to reach their full potential in a safe environment. So I'll go and sit now. You will sit here.
Yes, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your background.
Good. Okay. Jean and Mark, and then Martin, don't have the link. Yeah.
Oh, they were sent it, but I will send it. Do you have it?
I'm trying to,
I've got it.
hang on, I can set me a message.
Okay.
Well, I don't think I can provide any useful.
You leaving, Bill?
Well, yes, but thank you all very much indeed for allowing me to be here.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you for all the rest of the work, which just because I'm leading, it doesn't mean that it's not important. It's very valuable, and thank you. Yes, thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
And thank you, Alex, and thank you, Lynn, because I could get here without the bus.
There was no
Bus.
Right, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Cordy and Nancy, who are going to talk about their experiences growing up in the valley.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. So I'm Nancy. We're both in year 13, so we're both the top end of sixth form, and we're both the senior prefects here at Kew Valley School. I've lived in the valley since I was 5. I moved here from Bristol. I don't remember much of life before the Kew Valley, but nevertheless, my parents, we moved here when I was 5. I think with the anticipation of just having them wanting us to grow up in the countryside and in the Kew Valley.
I'm Cordy and I live in like Norton Marleywood. I've practically lived there my entire life. My parents originally, my mum's from Knoll and my dad's from Hartcliffe, but they both moved to Norton Marleywood like 2 or 3 years before I was born, and because they wanted to raise us in the countryside because they thought it'd be much more like peaceful, much more safer for them, and they thought they would create a lovely family life here.
Yeah. And I think we were both saying like it's not that it was our choice to, but it's not something that we regret. It's not like I think we both feel very fortunate to kind of be growing up here. We feel very lucky to kind of have grown up in not only like a very gorgeous place in that it's just like constantly surrounded by fields and like, you know, deer prancing through the meadows and stuff. Like it's a very lovely place, and I don't feel that I've necessarily missed out on loads having lived here and not having them not lived in the city.
I completely agree. Like my family, we love going out on walks, and it's very different to do that in the country compared to the city. And we love walking up. We have a specific walk around ours called the Tump, and you can climb up it, and right at the top of the hill, you can see to the left all of the valley, like all the fields, and to the right you could see literally all the Bristol, and you can see like the suspension bridge. And we do love living in the countryside, and I don't think I would change it, because there's like positives and negatives of living in the country, but I wouldn't change it because it's just so peaceful and you feel safe here. Like I don't know about you, but I feel safe. I don't feel worried about like anything happening to us like crime wise, and obviously I live in a little like hamlet, but I feel very safer.
Yeah, I think that's one of biggest positives of it is that, and I think growing up, it's something my parents, there was never a worry about kind of safety. It's always, everything is always felt very safe. You know, we kind of, in primary school, I lived about 10 minutes away from my primary school, down a long windy lane where my house was, not where the primary school was. But I was walking from, like, you know, year 6, I'd be able to walk around, and I had piano lessons in the village, which I could walk to easily, and there was never a worry for safety or anything like that. That's always been something which has been a massive positive of growing up here compared to kind of the environments you'd maybe have in Bristol or in similar cities.
Definitely.
And I think, yeah, we've kind of touched on the fact that it's just very calm and peaceful, and it feels like healthy, which I think is a weird way of describing it. But the kind of the idea of being in like fresh air and having the environment that we live in, and also just having the fact that it is very quiet, it's very peaceful, there's less transport than you'd get, it doesn't feel like everything's, you know, congested or like fumes or litter or dirt or anything. It feels often very pristine and just very lovely.
Yeah, which is most of the time, I would say, definitely.
Yeah. And then I think also we were just saying the community is a massive thing that I don't necessarily know whether you'd get in the city. I've got my best friend lives in the city. We went to the same primary school before I then moved here. And she says, I know that in her road they have various community activities, but I think beyond that, you're walking around and you don't know anyone. And whereas here, I think you, especially through when we're at school and things like that, and other various community activities that I feel are kind of more in abundance in the Tweed Valley than they are perhaps in the cities. There's definitely that sense of kind of community and knowing everyone and just a very wholesome environment.
Absolutely. Like, I think it was last Friday, I went to go and get petrol from Winford, and I usually don't go down there often, but I obviously saw someone thanks to like doing stuff. I saw someone I knew, and it's just nice to have like a nice smiley face at you, saying hello, saying how you doing, because it's just those, I think it's those small interactions in day-to-day life that just sometimes can just brighten your day, like seeing a familiar face where you don't expect it. And just that, as you said, that community, I think, especially in the Valley, I think that is really strong, where we all want to help each other. We all want to make this the best place it can be to help everyone.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, like growing up in the Tweed Valley as a whole, obviously when you're kind of in like the primary school years, it's not something that you have control over, but you don't also have the freedom to be able to choose. It's very much like, this is how we live, but you didn't know there was an alternative to it, really. And so you go, and often a lot of it would be making your own fun, and you know, you have the freedom to play outside and or go to a friend's house or go to the park and things like that. I think the golf then is then, or the dip is then when you kind of reach the teens, especially the late secondary school time, which we've now both passed because we're kind of old enough to either navigate transport or drive. But there's the tricky period is maybe kind of year 8 to year 11, where you want to start doing stuff and doing things with your friends. And I think in year 7 and 8, there was a lot of, you're able to find your own fun, and you can, it's enough to just go to a park and chat with a friend, and it's enough to just have a sleepover with a mate, or to kind of go to each other's house. But after maybe 2 years of doing that, you want something more and you want to get that freedom. But I think the tricky thing is just doing that and where to do it and how to do it. Obviously, like we've talked about transport and stuff, but even so, like at that age, it's often tricky. I don't know whether you would necessarily trust your kid to go out and navigate the transport system, which we should be doing, perhaps, I think. But you don't necessarily do. And I think so much of the heavy lifting is kind of then put onto parents. And that's what I always found, is whereas my friend, again, because perhaps they lived, all of my friends living in the Tweed Valley are like, although we're all from the same place, one's in Hinton Blewett, and then the other one's in Winford, and then one's down in Kew Stoke. Whereas my friend in Bristol, all her friends are 5-minute walk away, because it's just so much more compacted. And so much of the heavy lifting, like if I wanted to go into Bristol, or if I wanted to see, just literally just go 10 minutes and see a friend, it was something I had to plan in advance. And I'd have to go, right, when are we next meeting up? Okay, so if you get a lift here and I'll get a lift here, and then we can meet there maybe, or we could do this, what do we want to do for the afternoon? Which I think has been valuable, we talked about. I think it's a valuable skill to kind of be building that, and to have that kind of appreciation maybe. But equally, when I see my friend who could then literally just walk to her friend's house, or be able to, you know, in all directions, there'd be something to do, which is a 5-minute walk away, that's when you then kind of start thinking, what's there for me to do.
Yeah, you kind of still you start to feel a bit like envious of them because you feel like you have to put in so much more effort just to do little things you want to do, like see a friend. Whereas obviously they just do a 5-minute walk away, 5-minute walk with their friends.
Yeah.
But it's just like I think definitely the buses they've made a massive difference for like the availability for people to come into school and for people to kind of go around. But I think it's definitely that age range you said between year 8 to year 11 where they want to start exploring more. They want to kind of venture out a bit more of their comfort zone and go into Bristol a bit more. But they don't have the skill, I don't think. And it's not anyone's fault. I just think they haven't got the quite skill to navigate, like looking at bus timetables, knowing which one to take and kind of managing their time. And I think that definitely needs to kind of be drilled more to the younger years, especially.
Yeah, and then it's tricky because then it's what's the alternative? Because there's been, I mean, I remember going to a youth group that was trialled in Bishop Sutton when I was, I think, possibly year 6, year 7, so I was young. But I kind of don't, I think me and my friend and maybe one other person were the only really attendees of that. I think it's just the fact that it's then what do we do? And also I've got, you know, like you said, you live in a hamlet, you've got nothing there.
There's only a church in North Mine. I'm not kidding you. And it can be a positive thing because it's so nice and peaceful, but also literally we have to drive here into Magna just to get a pint of milk. So obviously there's not much that can be done about that. But I do think like the closest bus stop to me is a half-an-hour walk away. So getting transport to North Marleywood Way is very tricky for us. So we have to, before learning to drive, I did have to rely on my parents a lot for lifts and stuff. And so does my younger brother as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just things to do. That's when I'm kind of talking to this. I spoke to a few friends and asked their opinions, and the kind of feedback I got was just was like, people felt bored, which again sounds horrible because we are in a lovely environment and stuff, and it's lovely where we live, but it can get boring. And I think at the age when you want to be having these experiences and doing stuff, there's only so many times that you can frequent your local park and, you know, get a chocolate bar from the shop, which used to be me and my friends' daily, you know, weekly routine of meeting up. And so I think it's just that thing of having stuff to do. You know, I know a lot of my friends, the things they'll go to do, the gym is a big one. So that's a massive thing, which is a thing that people want to go and do, and is a thing to have available. I think but also just spaces which are just places to go, which again is hard because you can't then suddenly, the more you start bringing in, the more it becomes less of a True Valley and more of a Bristol, which is then counterintuitive in itself. But I think kind of the main takeaways are just, we do genuinely love it here. And we feel very fortunate in the place that we've grown up.
Yeah. And
I think at the age we are now, we're now able, that we don't have the issues that we used to have. But then when I look back at those crucial years of kind of childhood, a lot of it would just be not knowing what to do, which then kind of, as much as you say that you move to the countryside to be able to play in the fields and to go out biking with your friends, you just end up sat at home watching telly or on your phone, which I'm sure is the same for kids in Bristol, but it's because that's kind of the generation we're in. But as much as you might think, oh well, it's lovely being in the countryside because you've got so much space to do stuff, you can go play outside. You know, we've seen the weather, I don't think it's like stopped raining once this entire January.
Exactly.
Kids will then just end up staying in and things, because I just don't think there's that alternative.
The whole phone and social media is a completely other issue that needs to be dealt with. But I do agree, like kids do want to go out more, especially those kind of years, but it's really hard to be able to do that. And what I want to say earlier was what you said with the under 16s getting free passes. My brother and his friends, they did that so much over the summer and they loved it. Obviously you said you couldn't kind of prove their age, but they were 15 at the time, but they loved it. And they would say like having it maybe around September time or more often, they said it would be really helpful, and that would kind of motivate them more to be able to get around more.
And bus drivers are really flexible about the ages anyway, and some very old looking young people in services.
Well, technically, if you're a student, you're a young person.
Yes.
Happy to open it up for questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions for the wonderful duo?
I found it really interesting when you said about the year 8 to, you know, and how do you get into those kind of habits? It's really, I think that's a really interesting point. I don't know quite how we get that kind of education of using
The
timetable.
question is how, if you're saying they don't have the skills to know how to use a timetable, how could they get them? What would your solution to that be?
One of the ones which I thought about, and again, I don't know how it works, if it could work. Kids, I think nowadays, and I kind of briefly referenced it earlier, they just want to know how, they just want it, the answer there. And I think apps are a huge part of that. Everything is online nowadays. I think if there was an app for services like the 99 or the 91 where you could see like a live timetable, or at least have you could maybe put in like a thing, I want to get to Bishop Sutton to Bristol, how do I do it using these services? I think that would make it, because I know that bigger services in Bristol have that, like first bus and things like that. So we'll be in Bristol and my friend will just whip out their phone and search like, oh no, there's a bus coming from this place, let's head over there.
Yeah. You can track them, can't you?
Yeah, you can track them and you can see the kind of time.
There is one for the Big Lemon, but you know,
Big Lemon has a page for each service, and you kind of shows the tracking of the bus and the timetable. But that's slightly different to what you're talking about. I think the best way right now is to go on Google, put your destination, you put where you are now, and you put any journey you want to take out from where you live. I bet it starts with the X91 on the 99.
Yeah,
because we are the obvious link to other things.
100%.
So I'd encourage Google, but a bit of me was wondering, you know, should you be learning this in school? Should it be able to put their lesson?
The thing that did come to my mind is in year 7, I remember doing these and I actually loved them. We do drop down days, which is kind of a very helpful program. So you spend one day completely off timetable and you learn about important things, kind of like bullying and then like all those kind of things, and maybe doing one based on life skills. I think in year 7, I personally think with life skills you can never be too early to learn them, especially in our day and age now, where I find with social media and that kind of stuff, I would say nowadays more young people are relying kind of the easy way out or not wanting to put in as much effort into doing things. So I think if you learn it in lessons in schools, or maybe like PR lessons as well, PSHE, that could be really helpful as well for kids to kind of engage and then want to like retain the information and go, oh, I want to go to Bristol today, I can take the X1 or the 99. That would be really helpful.
Great, thank you. We will talk to staff on those two.
The other thing is that there are things outside of the Tube Valley that, you know, so if, for example, Imperial Park, where the X91 goes to very regularly, and on a Saturday, they have a gym, has a swimming pool. I mean, they're membership ones, but if you walked a little bit further, there's Hengrove, which is a public pool. But, you know, there are, you know, it's that researcher mentality, isn't it? You've got to kind of, it's harder work, I think, in a rural setting. You've got to pay off of, it's a lovely place to live, but you've got to research a lot more to do things. And I think it's hard, isn't it, when you're a young person doing that? It's like, I resonated when you said you've got to plan. You know, I remember my son doing the same. He lives in London now, it's a bit different, but you know, he found it really difficult. You know, when he came to the Tube Valley, he came to Bishop Sutton when he was just starting sixth form, and changed to here, and then he found it was very much a, you know, around at your house kind of thing, definitely, rather than you know, restaurant, pub, nightclub kind of scenario, you know.
Look, I think we've got a question from Sam.
Sorry?
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Really behind the
Something. Does the bus go to Hengrove?
It goes to Imperial Park. So it used to go to Hengrove Park, and one of the tweaks that happened out of customer requests was that it stops at Imperial Park instead.
Right.
So there is a bus that can take you from Imperial Park to Hengrove Park, so you can get to the pool or you could walk it. So yeah, it is still possible to get to that hospital, and
that's helped me. Right, Sam.
It's probably the question that you two can answer, but it might be like Dave. So sorry, I'm putting up the answers now. You mentioned a youth club in Bishop Sutton. Does it still exist? And how many other youth clubs are there in the Tube Valley? And where are they? Are they spread in a way that makes it easy to get to? Also, that's another thing that's going to be an outreach for you guys to actually go to youth clubs so that you can inform kids how they can get around independently. Is part of the youth club service is that independent.
We're going to be looking at that, Sam, afterwards. No, it's okay. We're going to try and gather that information.
Okay.
Yes, there is still a youth service
provision in Bishop
Is
Sutton.
it just in Bishop Sutton?
Bristol Union, yeah. I don't know.
think that's the only one.
Okay, it's the only one, I was
Yeah.
going to say, because we did, that used to be one route we thought of. And actually, I didn't know about that one. I didn't know about any
A
other.
few years ago, there used to be a mobile youth bus.
That is
that.
The Bristol Youth one that we commissioned for Bishop Sutton, yeah. So it's a Parish Council with the cost and transport plans.
So it runs a youth club each week, does it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Every Wednesday.
I'm just
gonna, there's no other questions for these lovely women. Can I just say a huge thank you to you both? You're so articulate. Credit to you, to the Tube Valley.
Yes,
that speaks into it. But I absolutely, it chimed with me, having had 3 children go through here, years 8 to 11 are tough. And there's not that much to do. I remember them sloping off to discos in Bishop Sutton. I'm pretending not to notice. Anyway, but thank you very much. It's been really helpful.
Yeah.
Do I get home? Sure.
You're all right.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, I'd like to introduce Mr. Gareth Benyon now. He's the head of Tube Valley School, to look at what they're doing to support young people.
Thank you. Young people's mental issues. Let me start very briefly with the fact that I've been head now at Tube Valley for nearly 10 years, and I've been doing this job for 32. And I say to people regularly that working with young people hasn't changed that much. Apart from the fact that I liken it to when I first started this job, you had to unpack somebody's baggage with a small haversack on their back. And now, dare I say it, the baggage we have to unpack with young people is somewhat akin to heavy suitcases heading off into the distant passes for long periods of time. So the actual raw material hasn't changed, but the baggage that young people come into school with has significantly. I'd also add that, and that's been written to anybody to us, The Anxious Generation is the book to read on the topic. But it's clearly from our experiences that the onset of mobile phones and linked with the period of COVID that this generation went through has severely affected the confidence, the resilience, and the adaptability of young people. Mobile phones are one of our biggest pieces of luggage to unpack, and educating young people with that. We're very aware of what's going on at the moment. Australia, Austria, other countries have gone. We will follow. At Tube Valley, we have a really simple rule with mobile phones, and when they're not out during the school day, they get removed if they are. That's not when the damage gets done with young people. The damage gets done in bedrooms at 10 o'clock at night when parents think they're safe. Damage gets done on long weekends when they should be out playing, buying chocolate bars and doing the rest of it. And so we have a rise in mental health issues in school in a way that many other establishments would be too. I'm going to talk you through some of the areas that we work, both within school and away from school. Let me start with some external providers that work really closely with us. We work with them to use and their expertise. Firstly, Off the Record, a big organisation that we use. Their website is a really brilliant one, some great videos on some of the work that they do, but we are beholden to Off the Record with many of our students on direction as well. Clearly CAMS, Children and Adolescents Mental Health Services, our group that we work very, very closely with the expertise that comes back into school. Recommendations from CAMS assessments are key for lots of reasons working with young people, and they are key with us. We also signpost, having been quite negative about mobile phones and the internet can be a really useful resource for young people in us to use as well. We use Young Minds, okay, which is a really clear line that we use to signpost online resources for young people. In school, I've got a brilliant team an incredibly skillful team of professionals who work with our young people. Counselling, if you like, as far as school is concerned. We don't have counsellors, but we have tutors, we have heads of houses. I have a safeguarding and wellbeing officer who doesn't teach. The diaries full in a week, every week. We're working with young people on where things would need to be. We have drop-in services. We have a school nurse that students can self-refer into, and quite often conversations happen between the school nurse as far as things are concerned. Some students who are well known to us have support plans. Some students from their mental health in school go so far as to have risk assessments because we're trying to keep them safe with their mental health as well in school as far as things are concerned. So we use a range of services, both in school and away from school, to work with the young people. It's tricky, really tricky. I think the fact that young people are very aware when we talk about it a lot is and balance, a positive thing to happen. On the other hand, young people are picking this up from hearing about it. We live in an age when diagnosis and self-diagnosis using the internet is something which we're working with all the time. Again, the internet is positive, so people, children and adults, trying to identify they have ADHD or areas along those lines are all out there. Unfortunately, with the internet, that invariably gives them a list of what they feel they should be able to do and what they feel they shouldn't be able to do. And actually, we like to break the ceiling and say that we've got a human being and an individual in front of us, and they can do anything they want. Okay, and so we're able to work our way through it. If I employed 10, 15 more professionals, I wouldn't meet the need that could come up in the work at the moment around supporting them. Okay, and clearly, therefore, we worked with our services. We work with GPs, said already, we work with CAMs to be able to do things for them. I would just add, and this might well come up in an article later, fresh air, team sport, not enabling them to sit on their phones for hours where it needs to be, keeping them engaged. We're working really closely at Trailblazers School, opening up again our sports and leisure facilities away from the school day, which I can come to in a bit when we talk about the provision that we're working with a company called Shine at the moment. But I do some really strong work with the community farm at the moment, where some students with mental health areas go and spend the quality time there in order to be able to do things and work with them and see things forward. And the community farm have always been highly supportive. I sit on the management committee of the community farm, so it's quite a good link that goes on between the school and them with the community. Fresh air, the school's always had a reputation for outdoor education, so taking children out, doing 10 tours, doing Duke of Edinburgh, but also we've got other groups of students who perhaps wouldn't be in the obvious ones to access some of that permission. Doing smaller programs with us, which simply enable them to go out like fires, walk around in the dark, and be children, which I think is really key. I could talk for ages on this matter. I'm not going to go any further. I do, though, want to contribute a bit more when we get on to provision in the valley. It's something we feel very passionate about. We are opening that up quite significantly. So when we get to that stage, I have some things I'd like to contribute. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That's really helpful and amazing work you're doing.
Thank you.
Neil, I think it's over to you next. Do you want to introduce yourself? I mean, I'm aware that you work with young people who are not in education, employment or training.
Yeah.
So over to you, really.
Thank you. So I'm Mia Suter. I'm from Banes Council and I work in the business and skills team. I'm currently leading on the Youth Guarantee Trailblazers project. It's a government funded project that started in March 2025. I've got a presentation. It is very wordy. So I'm hoping to just do a summary of it instead of you feeling like you need to read it. But Mark's going to share it afterwards for you to look at because there's some nice case studies attached to it as well. So I'll just attempt to share that now. So the Youth Guarantee Trailblazer is aimed at 16 to 21-year-olds who are not in employment, education and training. We're able to support with any young people who are at risk of becoming NEET as well, because I can identify that is an area where young people are struggling, and we're working with providers to highlight where those young people are and how they're struggling and how we can pick them up. The initial idea was to support young people with transport barriers, so that's come up quite a lot this evening, and I've made some notes on how maybe we can connect with you and the things that you've got running in your area. The idea was that we want young people to be able to get to places of work, get to social experiences where they can develop personally, get to education and get to training as well. So we have access to things like bus passes. We're trying to set up some opportunities for bike workshops as well, so young people can keep hold of bikes but also learn how to maintain them. A huge things that we've identified is unsafe bus stops across the Banes area, not just sort of in the Chew Valley area. So we're asking for some feedback on how we can support with that. And it was really interesting to hear about the bus routes, because it'd be really nice to promote that to more young people, but also identify any groups that we can give out the bus passes that we have access to, and maybe we can go into that in a little bit later. What we are trying to do as well is ensure that the offer of the Youth Guarantee project is accessible across Banes. I think there's a lot of focus in the Bath area, but we're trying to reach out to other areas within the Banes area. And the overall object is to support young people into employment, education and training, but we don't want it just to feel that young people are being pushed into education or employment. We want to make sure that they've got the skills that support them to get into that and sustain their placement in those areas. We've identified that there's a lot of anxiety around accessing these opportunities, including public transport. So we're working with lots of providers that can support maybe with travel training or understanding, like mentioned before, reading timetables and things like that. So that's been really helpful. We've identified that some villages and towns don't have access to public transport, or if they do, it's not regular enough for young people to sustain jobs. We've got some young people that work overnight time but aren't able to access safe transports home. So we're trying to understand what that looks like for young people and build on that. And we also understand there's families on low income across the Banes area that feel a lot of financial pressure to support their children into different bus routes and trying to get to different areas. So we're trying to work with internal teams as well as external into identifying these families and seeing how we can support. Maybe we can access emergency taxi and things like that. We've got many solutions that we've discovered since starting the project in March. We've got a handful of bus passes for West Pass. We've also used our own funding to access different bus providers as well as the West Link. We have looked into independent travel, so we have actually supported one young person to access their CBT to safely ride a motorbike. This has been quite popular for young people who had already had access to that and now have the training. And we are also looking at manual and e-bikes, as I mentioned earlier. I think this is an offer that will probably be more appealing when the weather's a bit nicer, but we'd like to connect our areas as best as possible. And like I mentioned, we can fund emergency taxi. Within the team, we're currently operating with 2 coaches, as well as working on partnerships of local providers. Our coaches within the team can work one-to-one with young people to help them understand employment and education aspirations and goals, so we can look at CV writing and things like that. We also have a colleague that's dedicated to working with local employers. Now, the aim of this is to support young people with work placement. What we're finding is a lot of young people are asking for work placement and not getting the opportunity because they don't have the experience. We, as a team, are approaching these employers to help them understand the barriers that young people are facing, but also introduce them, be sort of the middleman. So it supports with growth in confidence and reducing any anxiety about meeting big employers or new people. And we found this to be quite beneficial. We also have additional funding for things like ID, PPE equipment for anyone who wants to work in the trade industry or anything like that. We can access interview clothing or clothing in general if young people need access to it. And we found the training budget has been really well used. So things like CSCS has been very popular among young people, and we're looking into different areas that young people might like to access that. So here is just a summary of what we've done so far. And like I said, I'll send it around. But one thing that might be of interest to you is we ran our first road show in Midsummer Norton in January. We are looking to run another one in the Chew Valley area on the 19th of March at the Rugby Club. The idea of the road show is instead of young people feeling like they have to travel across Banes to access employers or provision, we are going to bring a selection of these people to the young people. So we're looking to host this in a local area that's easy to get to. Now, it's reflecting on what was said about using the buses that you have operating in your area. I wonder if we could set up, you know, promotion of this event and get some bus tickets paid for young people so that they know they can definitely get to the place that we're looking at and go forward. So I'll pick that conversation up with Jackie outside of this. We have found the Youth Guarantee a slow start, and I think someone mentioned it earlier, sometimes these things take time. We have really found a development in our relationship and our numbers starting to grow. Now young people are hearing more about us, but it's about continuing to promote that offer. What I've really enjoyed about the project so far is we're able to be quite flexible. We want to reflect on what young people are telling us are a challenge, and we're trying to move the project to suit this rather than assume the problems that they're facing. More recently, we have gained more partnerships. So we've accessed Sporting Family Change recently. They're a wonderful company that work with young people facing barriers to education. They have a team that are dedicated to go and collect young people, work with them one-to-one. Now, what I love about their project is they build on the idea of kindness is what the whole world moves around. So they work on a lot of development for personal skills around resilience, kindness, confidence building. And then we have other employers that support with the creative industries and building confidence that way. So Little Lost Robot, Curo, Bath Rugby Foundation, and so on. If anyone had any questions, I'm happy to answer at the end about these relationships. So we've just been awarded our second year of funding from WECA. So this will run up to December 2026. So we've got another 9 months. We are finalising what the funding looks like, obviously, but we're excited to have a look deeper into the transport element of this as well as the support we're already offering. The eligibility will continue to be 16 to 21 for young people not in employment, education or training. We would like to hear more about transport for more rural areas and whether bus passes and bikes are the way forward, or there's other ways that we can look at in terms of spending funding that we have. As mentioned, the roadshow, we've got one in Chew Valley, and then we'll have others that will pop up across the Banes area as well. We've got courses coming up, so we've currently got a Cool Ventures course running. It's called Enterprise Challenge, and it's to support young people not only get to grips with becoming self-employed, but also aspects of employment and well-being. So we will be rolling that out again in the future. And then we want to continue to build with our partners. This is just a breakdown of our team. And like I said, these contact details can be shared around should anyone have any questions. And then here's some of the feedback so far from our young people and providers. Like I said, I can share this as well, but I'm just conscious of time. So if I stop sharing, I'd like to open up to any questions.
Yep, that's fine. That's fantastic. And but the Banes, the fact our bus goes to Bristol, and these opportunities, are they mainly in the kind of town of Bath? And you know, does that mean that there's a possibility of funding for buses to Bath as well?
In terms of funding for bus route, because we don't have funding for long long period of time. We haven't been able to access that. What we are doing though is keeping an open line of communication with WECA and the mayor. So we had a mayor visit the other day and my manager Laura spoke to her about the issues that young people find around transport. And as much as it's lovely that they get bus passes, it's about the irregularity of these buses that are causing a problem or the fact that they're not safe. So any feedback, we are doing our best to make sure that that is heard.
Yeah, so the roads also are quite tricky in the Chew Valley area for young people to use. The roads are very safe, very wide, and the bus infrastructure isn't there for bus stops. We've highlighted this a number of times as well.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a in-depth conversation.
Yeah.
Sam, I was just going to raise, you mentioned at the beginning about unsafe bus stops. I've had a number of issues with even buses along the A37, which, you know, you wouldn't think is particularly rural at that point. I mean, if ever there's works going on, the bus stops seem to just not be stopped at by the bus drivers. So even though they're not taken out of commission, the bus drivers are just going, I'm not stopping here because it's next to a stoplight. So I've got young women who are working late in Bristol coming back, and they're being dropped off in a place like Clutton and having to walk all the way back to Chelmsford, which is quite a hike. It's a a couple of miles to kind of get back, which not down dark lanes and all that kind of stuff. So it's an unsafe thing. I think this is actually a real issue. I don't know how you want that sort of feedback, but this isn't an isolated occurrence. It does happen quite regularly, especially on those bus stops along the A37. Because when there are roadworks, it just seems to, the bus drivers don't think about who they've actually got that they're dropping off. And they just look at where it's safe for them to stop the bus, not where it's safe for their passengers to actually get off where they need to actually, access their home. So they already have to walk down the A368 to get in Chelmsford anyway. So I don't know how you got that feedback.
Definitely be able to sort of say some where the best sort of approach is in terms of.
I mean, I think what you're talking about is first bus buses.
Yeah, but I think Mary was just talking about unsafe bus stop.
Yeah.
That's what I think would be unsafe in rural areas.
I think there is a difference with the Big Lemon are a very community-based kind of organisation. So there are times when they will drop someone in a slightly different place because of the needs of the customer. That's very different to the commercial bus services.
Yeah, they're not run for the customers, are they?
No, not really focused on the same way. But I think the issue of unsafe bus stops is a general one. So I'm glad that you're looking at that. At the present time, some of the bus stops that our route stops at don't have any marker indication that they are a bus stop. No flag, no. Certainly no bus shelter, nowhere to sit. It's asking quite a lot of someone to go out on a wet day in the cold or whatever and wait somewhere where there's not even an indication that that's a stop. So I do think it's an issue that would be good for lots of people to be saying out loud a lot.
Okay, Jackie.
So I was just going to offer to take that point back regarding first bus because I can raise it. Because that's obviously an issue, and just in relation to the safety of bus stops, again, it's something which I can talk to Mia about. But we had a conversation with the Department for Transport last week, so they're interested in potentially funding some local authorities to put in CCTV at bus stops, or they're exploring whether that's an interest. And my kind of question back was, is that the thing that makes difference? Is CCTV the thing that helps? Because if you're on your own in the middle of nowhere, it's all very well being pointed, but it's still vulnerable. So does it give false security? Does it actually feel like it's something that's helpful and useful to you, or is there something else that's needed? Because it was in the context of a conversation about safety of women and girls in particular on public transport, and that's one of the things that they raised. So I'm just being genuinely interested in
footpaths. I think also make a difference. There's not many places where there's footpaths that go to a bus stop, and I know that's probably a bigger cost. But I think footpaths before CCTV and lighting is another.
I was going to say, Chew Lake bus stop has a bus stop there. There's no shelter. There's no bench, there's only a flag on one side and there's no lighting. I'd say that is one area where it doesn't feel safe at night time to work there. So I think I can happily give you a list of bus stops where I think lighting, shelter, something that shows that this is a place to stop actually does increase the safety overall.
On the same issue, and I just, Jackie's pretty much said it, but some of the bus stops are a puddle and a laminated bit of card that we put there tied onto a bush.
Yeah, literally a couple of
Literally
places.
tied onto a bush, and that is it.
And Chew Valley School, you know, I imagine it would be easier to get kids onto the bus if they knew precisely where it was going to stop. It doesn't have a set stop. It stops where it can around the parked cars. So that there's a real message there, isn't there, about what's given priority.
Mia, can I just ask, do you have any idea of the number of NEET either in the Chew Valley area, which probably is a bit of an ask, or across Baines?
I don't off the top of my head. I think what we're identifying with the NEET young people is there is a percentage that are engaged with providers that deliver some form of support, but what we are finding is actually the harder to engage young people are those who maybe off the back of COVID or from mental health needs are sort of stuck at home and not engaging with anyone, and these young people are really hard to capture in terms of a numerical factor. This is where we've sort of connected with Sporting Family Change because they're able to pick up from school age, but also they're able to visit young people's homes. But we are really sort of scratching our heads in terms of how do we get our offer and how do we get the young people to know that there is support out there that we can look at. So in terms of an actual figure, no, I don't have that, but we are picking up sort of feedback and areas where to look.
Right, thank you.
Do you work in, sorry, just speaking out loud, can I speak?
Yeah, Jackie.
Do you work in schools with kids in their last year of school before they hit their 16 and nowhere?
Yeah, so because they the funding asks for not in employment education and training, we don't go into schools. What we have done though is built a communication link to anyone who works sort of with student welfare or anything like that to highlight. We do a lot of work with Youth Connect Southwest as well, that do a lot of targeted provision within the schools because they're already able to identify the young people and understand their needs as well. So we've gone around it that way. Bath Rugby Foundation also work within schools as well. So we sort of lent on the providers who are already there.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Mia. I mean, as ever, if people have got other questions or queries, just sort of pass them through to Mark and we'll get them through to Mia. Mia, I think you have to leave us, is that right?
I do, yeah, sorry about that.
No, okay, well, thank you very much indeed. That's been really helpful.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
We're now moving on to our next agenda item, which is Best Start in Life and Family First programme. And I think we've got Jean Kelly, who is Director of Children's Services and Education Services across Bath and North East Somerset.
Evening,
So
everyone.
up to you, Jean.
Thank you. And I brought some colleagues with me just so that it's a great opportunity for us to meet you, albeit virtually. So yes, I'm Jean Kelly, Director of Children's Services and Education. Been in Baines since August last year, so haven't gotten to meet everybody yet. So it's really good to see you. And I'm going to get my two colleagues to introduce themselves. And then Paul, if you go first, and then we can put the slide pack up.
Certainly. Thanks, Jean. Hi, everybody. I'm Paula Sumner. I'm an assistant director working in Jean's leadership team, and I'm leading on transformation for children's services.
Marcia.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marcia Bergam. I'm a public health principal in Baines Council and lead on children's health improvement and early help.
So we're going to talk to you about two things. They are two government initiatives, two government mandates for us in our services, and we thought that it would be really helpful, and we were invited to come and talk to you about them. So quite high level at this stage, but we really do want to engage colleagues in conversations, and we hope this isn't the first and last of those. So first of all, we are going to talk to you about the best start in life, and Marcia will take us through a few slides that set out the government agenda and how that is impacting locally in terms of family hubs, but also supporting children to have a good level of development at the point at which they start school. And then Paula and I will talk to you about what's going to become legislation before too long, and that is the Family First Partnership reforms, and that's where we are looking to really reposition the way in which services are delivered to children, young people and families, to really privilege a preventative and earlier intervention approach. And we wanted to kind of present these two programmes because they really are interlinked. Although they're very separate parts of government agenda, they're very closely aligned, and we are thinking about them in synergy locally. So if I hand over to Marcia for the first part.
Thank you, Jean. So just as a brief overview, just to for colleagues in the room, the early years, particularly the first 1001 days, are the most influential period in our development in terms of shaping our lifelong outcomes later on. Essentially, it's this period that really sets the trajectory for our future life, and it's a key time when there's rapid brain development, and so those family relationships and supporting parent and carers to be able to look after their children well and to support them to do that is really crucial. In recognition of this, last year the government announced their Giving Every Child the Best Start in Life strategy. And as Jean mentioned, within that strategy, they've set local authorities a target to achieve a good level of development for children aged 5 when they're in reception, and that they've got individual targets for local authorities, and that has to be achieved by 2029, March 2029. So there's 3 key areas for development, and these have been set by the government for all local authorities to work towards achieving. Better support for families through Best Start family hubs, recognising the impact that family support has on being able to support children. More accessible early education and childcare, and also improving quality in the early years. And when we're saying early years, we're including reception, that first year of school. So next slide, please, Jean. So in terms of our Best Start Family Hub and development, we do have to, as well as part of the requirement of the Best Start Family Hub grant, we do have to have a local plan, a Best Start in Life plan for 2026 and beyond. And what we're looking at doing is investing in a dedicated Best Start Family Hub. Again, this is the has been set by the government. We do have to have one dedicated Best Start Family Hub, and we also want to build on our existing children and family centres. So we're fortunate in Banes that we do have 3 children and family centres. We have one in Keynsham that serves the Keynsham and Chew Valley area. We have one in the centre of town in Bath, and we also have one in the Somer Valley area, serving sort of the Midsummer Norton area. So as part of our plans, we really want to build on what we already have, but our Best Start Family Hub, we are looking to identify to put that in an area of deprivation. We have had a gap in the Bath West area, which has includes Twerton and Whiteway. So we've been working to identify a really good central location in that area, and we need it to be accessible. We need it to be multi-agency. In order to achieve these ambitions, it's essential that we have a multi-agency approach, and we have a Best Start in Life group in Banes. It's been around for a few years, and it includes colleagues from maternity, health visiting, children's centre services, speech and language, early year settings. So really focusing on that early, from conception to age 2, and now extending that to age 5 as well. So as part of our plans, we have had feedback from parent and carers around who they go to when they need support and when they want advice. And some of the feedback already has been that they actually go to their family, they go to their friends, their peers. And we really want to widen this out to develop and support some community, sort of those informal champions that we have. We were linking with our local churches, the local parish councils, in terms of those like informal toddler groups. So going to where parent and carers are already going and making sure that they have that really universal support, and that they're encouraged to access the Best Start Family Hub and our children and family centres so that they can get the parenting support when they need it, as soon as they need it, and that we can identify those needs early and get that access to early help support. There is a national web page that was launched, I think, last summer. So if you Google the Best Start in Life, the national page comes up, and there's a whole range of support and advice for information that links to those kind of verified sources of advice, information and guidance. And we're linking locally with Live Well Banes to strengthen our existing Best Start in Life tile that's already on that site. And eventually the national page will feed through to our local resource as well. And also recognise the important role that fathers and partners play, that really holistic family support offer. We really want to be focusing on that and making sure that all of our parenting programmes and the support offer and the services really support fathers and partners and other caregivers as well. So just to the next slide, thank you. It's really crucial that we do support the families and parent and carers to access all of the support available, including health services as well. And they're then more likely to access our early education and childcare services that we have. So as part of our plan, we really want to look at those key transitions. So when children are starting nursery and when they're then transitioning from nursery to reception. So we'll be investing in a Get Set for School programme, and that's a dedicated programme to support children with social, emotional, behavioural and communication needs, and particularly those who aren't eligible for some of the existing support funding that we have available, which is available nationally and locally. We want to develop and launch a trauma-informed toolkit for early years settings. And this is based on the existing primary school model toolkit that was launched last year, I believe. It's had really positive outcomes, and it's just part of having that really holistic offer of support for parent and carers and their children. We will also be looking at just the importance of social, emotional, mental health support between early years and primary schools. We'll be putting in TheraPlay Sunshine Circles. Again, we know that it's evidence informed. It has really positive outcomes for children and young people. And we're also enhancing that 2 to 2.5 year development review, which is undertaken by our health visitor service. And it's a universal service, so all parent and carers will have this the children will have the development review, and we want to strengthen this and put in an additional contact. So if additional needs have been identified, there'll be an additional contact at age 3, and our health visiting services will be working very much as they are already, but we'll be really enhancing that kind of support and hands over, warm hands over to other support services when they're identified. And finally, just in terms of the importance of that early speech and language and communication development for children and young people, in order to be ready for school, we'll be investing in our Language for Life resource, which has been piloted in some areas of Banes previously. We want to extend that. And again, it's had really positive outcomes. It's really a positive programme, and we're investing in that to ensure that that support is available as well throughout the early years. So I think that's some of the key areas, and I'm going to hand it. It's a very whistle stop, so happy to take questions later on as well.
Thanks, Marcia. So the second part of what we're going to cover is a huge piece of legislative change. If we go to the next slide, Paula, and this is the Family First reforms. So the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill is still travelling its way through the House of Lords and has been for some little while now. It's still kind of in amendment stage. And ahead of that piece of legislation becoming live, the Department for Education issued a set of statutory guidance for local authorities across the country to implement what's called the Family First Partnership Programme of Reforms. And it's a very particular set of changes that we're being asked to make. Now, if we move on to the next slide, I'll just say that what it's been influenced by and what the drivers have been before Paula says something more specific about what those changes are and what we've been working on. But the first area of influence has been what now Minister Josh McAllister's independent review of children's social care back in 2022. And that was born of a number of years of work actually with all of us as local authorities and with a whole range of stakeholders to think about how we rethink the way in which social care is delivered. And the legislation and these reforms is also influenced by some very high profile deaths nationally in other parts of the country that the National Safeguarding Panel reported on in 2023. So you've got two areas of reform. One is very much about early intervention and prevention and working with families and thinking about families as experts in order to prevent escalation of risk and harm. And the other is making sure that when children do need protection and safety, that we are making those decisions and supporting those families in the best possible way that we can. And we've also been really influenced by a number of Pathfinder local authorities who were given specific funding by the DfE in order to trial these approaches ahead of the rest of us, in order to give us some sense of what might work and some of the evidence base on which to support our thinking and implementation. So Paula, I'm going to hand over to you just to go through the specifics of the programme. That might mean you might need to miss that slide. I think I might have covered it.
Okay, stealing my thunder. Okay, no, that's fine. I'll move on to the kind of key areas of the programme that really have been clearly set out in the statutory guidance from the Department for Education. So the first key element is family help, as what is described in the programme as family help, which really sets out the mandate for us to develop a seamless support system. So right from families who require that kind of early help right through to the statutory child protection. And what they suggest is that those services are led or made up by what are described as family help lead practitioners. And practically what that means for families is they'll have one named key worker who will be their main point of contact regardless of what their needs and risks are. Other professionals may need to lean in and support those practitioners and the family, but they will remain their constant if you like, familiar face that knows that family's story and knows all about that family's network. And those teams will be multidisciplinary, so they will be made up of people who are social workers, but also those that are described as alternatively qualified. So that could be anything from somebody who's an early years expert or a youth worker or a family support worker, and that's to name but a few, but they will be multidisciplinary teams, and they will really provide that early targeted help before statutory intervention is required, and to actually prevent that statutory intervention being needed at all. The other really clear area in the guidance is the development of multi-agency child protection teams, and these have really been driven by the national panel's review of those high-profile deaths that we're all so familiar with, and they will be made up of again multidisciplinary teams, but with lead child protection practitioners who will be our most experienced social workers, and whilst there's no kind of standard set out in the guidance, we're expecting they will be social workers with 5 or more years of experience in child protection, and they will be in place to strengthen our decision making and our overall safeguarding practice. And then finally, and this is really threaded throughout the whole of the guidance that we've been provided with, is family group decision making used across both those family help teams and our multi-agency child protection teams. And really what that is to do is to make sure that families are central to the planning and co-creating solutions with professionals. So really at the heart of everything we do will be the family, helping and supporting them to make those decisions and to be part of the planning for them. And we've just added a couple of local elements to the programme that we believe are really important to enable us to deliver those mandated reforms. One is around how families access support, and at the moment it's quite a disjointed system, and what we don't want to do is discourage families from seeking support. So there'll be no wrong front door, but we do want to have an entry point that professionals can get support for families, or where families can seek support themselves. And so that will be for targeted early help and for things for families who require additional support than that. And then obviously Marcia has just eloquently described what our Best Start in Life programme is, but we kind of pulled that into the governance arrangements of this programme because they are so intrinsically linked. Okay, so very briefly what we've already done, we've been working really since the summer of last year to plan for this. We've been designing our new ways of working with that kind of multi-agency integrated front door that I've just described, our family help teams, and we've started to design what they may look like, and our multi-agency child protection teams, and what that family group decision making offer will look like for families in Banes. We've had quite a lot of staff engagement and influence in what that design may mean, and we've also engaged with families with lived experience of our services, and they've really helped to shape the design, and the insight from those families has been really invaluable as to how we design our services moving forward. And we continue to engage with our partners, not just our statutory safeguarding partners, but our partners that work really at grassroots in communities, so supporting families and actually asking them to help us in designing those services, but also what will their contribution be to what our family help offer will look like. So lots of work already happened, still lots more to do, and it'd be kind of really helpful to seek your views on how that feels locally in your area. If I stop sharing and open it up, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean and colleagues. Do you have any immediate questions? David.
Thank you very much. I've got a few questions really, I suppose. It's great if you're going into schools, clearly a major point of contact and delivery. I'm concerned about health visitor numbers, sort of over 40% decline nationally since 2015, and you're proposing more work for them, for want of a better word, and the public health grant generally fallen. So how are you going to square that circle, I guess, when mandated visits can often be put off or missed? And I'm curious about how design and delivery for rural areas has worked, or what input you've had.
Thank you. I don't know if there's anything you can say, Marcia, about the health visitor issue in terms of public nursing. So it's not necessarily a public health issue, but it is in terms of public nursing. I don't know if there's anything you can add there.
Yeah, sure. So I totally get the decline in the health visitor, nationally. Locally, we actually recommissioned our public health nursing services, and a new contract was put in place from the 1st of April last year. And so within that, but the budget envelope within the contract, we had already put in that there would be an additional contact. And what we have done is looked at the kind of needs, the Best Start in Life the Best Start in Life strategy very much is clear on the kind of input and the contribution from health visiting and the Healthy Child programme. We've been promised it's being updated. I think it's a version has been released this week, but that very much echoes the kind of thoughts about it's about making sure that the mandated reviews happen at the right time, and that they are advocating for an additional review, and that's something that we've worked with the service. So they've been very much informing the new Best Start in Life offer, and they're very much into, you know, they've actually informed when that additional check should take place and when they'd have capacity to do it. So it's not something that we're doing to those professionals. They're very much working alongside us to develop what our offer is, and looking at the needs of families and how they can, when is the best place for that additional check. So I hope that provides some reassurance there. Do you want me to go on? No. And in terms of the design and delivery from a Best Start in Life perspective, and the rural areas, all of the colleagues that are on the Best Start in Life group represent Banes as a whole. And so we really want to make sure that we're hearing that local voice, and I think part of coming out today, but also we're planning wider engagement. So we're planning on, you know, going out on a bus, doing all sorts of things just to make sure that we are hearing from parents and carers themselves, but also our early years colleagues, our early years foundation stage team within the council are also consulting with early years practitioners, and we want to also come out and speak to schools as well. So it's really, we really do welcome that feedback and contribution from yourselves to develop our local Best Start in Life plan.
Does that answer your queries, David? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from people? I suppose my immediate response to what you've just said is that the centre for Chew Valley is going to be in Keynsham.
Well, yes.
So that's
sorry, that's an existing. Yeah. So we have got a children and family centre it is situated in Keynsham. But actually the offer in terms of the families there, it also does serve, so outreach would take place in Chew Valley, you know, across the Chew Valley area, and from a health visitor perspective, they are based within, there is a base within the Keynsham Children and Family Centre, but they also, I know, go to say Bishop Sutton Hall on a Tuesday lunchtime, I think, and obviously visit parents and carers in their homes. And we really want to, you know, establish and build on the relationships with the settings within the areas as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Any other questions? Hopefully you're able to stay with us for 10 minutes. Is that possible, as we throw the room open to really having a discussion about what we think is in existence across the Chew Valley and where the gaps are, more importantly? Are people happy just to do that for the next 5 minutes and just do that as a group without dividing down? So can I open it up?
Did you want to start?
Okay, so at the moment we are running activities with the Badminton Club. We're running activities with Bishop Sutton Tennis Club. We're running activities with.
I can't hear.
Sorry.
I'm really sorry.
That's fine. I'll shout. We are, as the school, are working closely with the Rugby Club, the Badminton Club, Bishop Sutton Tennis Club, the Community Farm, all to offer activities out there. We have commissioned an organisation called Shine, who run a lot of provision in the local area around out of school activities. We are running holiday clubs for students all the way from young students through at half terms and holidays, which has had a big take up from Shine, which is enabling parents to continue to work and utilise, and we're running them here. Although quite a lot of the activities have been sporting provision, we are keen with the company to open up into other activities, drama, other workshops with young people, so that we're able to do that. And that is both mine and my governor's wish, that the school becomes more of a community hub. Now, people in this room will remember I worked quite actively to turn this into a community library, and was willing to put all the time and effort in, and the local community didn't want to come with me on that particular proposal. So I'm afraid after a lot of work, I stepped away from the community because they weren't prepared to work with the school about my open offer to work with the community. I am continuing to make the offer. We are the biggest employer, or one of the biggest employers in the valley. Okay, and I am keen for our facilities to be used for young people away from the school day, so that they're able to access the provision that others have in other areas, such as in the central Bristol. So yeah, I just wanted to make that statement. I am looking to continue to increase the amount of opportunities using our site. Notwithstanding the issues parking on the road, I have 2 reasonable sized car parks that can be used in a very safe way. A sports centre, a school site, and Shine are very active and very keen to make this arrangement work.
That sounds really good. Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, no, that's
That's
brilliant. Are there any immediate gaps that you want to draw our attention to?
I haven't, not gaps yet, but I was a bit remiss of me because we've also been working with the Valley Arts. Okay, to be fair to Geraldine and her brilliant team, and they have been working with us, not just in school, but providing arts in the valley, and that's a strength of the Chew Valley and has been a strength of the school as well. So that's not quite the opposite, as far as gaps concerned. I'd be really interested to see and listen to the conversation about youth organisations in the valley. How successful are and how thriving are scouts and guides and other voluntary organisations. I know there's a lot of other sporting opportunities that also use our site. So netball, hockey clubs are using our site all of the time. I know there's other football clubs for young people which are quite prevalent in both the valley and Dundry looking this way. So yeah, I'm more interested in kind of, okay, that's okay.
Yep, no, that's great. Thank you very much, Gareth.
Gareth, a question.
Yeah, sure.
Gareth, if you recall, a long time ago, we had a children's centre actually on the site of the valley. And sadly that, for lots of reasons, couldn't progress. Is there still capacity for some provision that, you know, if that's something that could be explored? Because the health visitors used to be here, didn't they? And they used to be in the children's centres. And I know you've utilised that space.
I have. We have the most,
which was an amazing space.
Yeah,
by the way.
we have the most amazing SEND block on our site, which was a children's centre, which we really took control of and with it. I would say the problems I walked into as head with the children's centre was that of a safeguarding nature, and our site was not able to safeguard our children at the same time as having visitors on the site. We've changed our physical site significantly since then, fence, gates, all the things you'd expect us to have done. I'm very open though, to answer your question, to people coming and having a look at the site and seeing whether or not there's things that we could utilise. So I'm more than happy for visitors to come and have a look and see what's available, and I'm keen to use where we can. Absolutely. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. So I mean, maybe that's something that Jean and colleagues can follow up on. Right, thank you.
Yeah, we'd love to.
You'd also mention that the X91 and the 99 buses both stop at the school.
Yes.
So
It's a sort of central point, isn't it, for families? Yeah. Somebody was saying about youth provision. I can sort of update in terms of Bishop Sutton, as I think I mentioned just previously. We commissioned Bristol Youth to deliver it within Bishop Sutton. 1 evening a week, they use their mobile bus, and it's been very, very successful in terms of the numbers of young people who attend. And not only that, it's young people that come from some of the other villages as well. So it's not just Bishop Sutton. I think it's fair to say that there's a pressure on the budget in order to continue to meet the cost, and applying for grants with Bristol Youth has got increasingly difficult. So as ever, there is the danger that we may need to contain the frequency, because we're not going to be able to meet the ongoing cost. So I suppose one of the things I was saying is, if there are other parishes here, councillors, who are able to sort of help in terms of a contribution, that would be brilliant. That's the only youth provision I know of.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah. Jackie.
I haven't got any money, but I had a question. Which was
she'll work every night.
around the bus and how it works, and also kind of access to some of the sort of build facilities. Because I think the bus is a brilliant kind of, you can come in, you can bring everything with it. Does it always work year round? So I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of people actually physically inside the bus.
Yeah, this is the inside the bus.
You've got.
I mean, the youth workers, if you wanted to go down any Wednesday evening, they're more than pleased for people to just have a look around. It's an incredible mobile provision. It's also parked next to our multi-use games area, which has floodlighting, so that helps as well in terms of young people being able to, access that with football or whatever. And of course, in daylight, it's got the whole sort of gym, outdoor gym provision, which is something going.
Do you find that the village halls are open to youth activity, or is that kind of more of a contested state?
I think previously it was a big challenge. It's become less of a challenge because it's a different chairperson.
So being specific to Bishop Sutton, sorry, I was just interested in village halls generally and whether I don't know about your.
I mean, I can kind of talk to that. I mean, I'm a ward councillor sort of on the edge of the Chew Valley, so we have Platinum and Chelmsford that are considered part of Chew Valley, a farmer that's, I don't know where that's considered to be, but it's just on the outskirts. Village halls tend to be difficult because they already have a lot of stuff going on in the evenings, and that is the biggest problem. Also, the facilities they have and whether they're safe for the kids. Farnborough this financial year put money in the budget to have Youth Connect Southwest come and do stuff. It's like on a Thursday evening, 6 to 8. It's in our really recently refurbished sports facility on our recreation ground. So that's the pavilion, which is a perfect opportunity because it's got a big green space around it and a mover as well. And we also had a donation of an outside table tennis table, which they absolutely love. So it was a great place for the youth provision team when they came down. I was a bit like, I'm not sure whether this is going to be the right place because the hall was quite small, but they came down, they were just like, this is going to be brilliant because there's so many things they can do, has a kitchen and all those kind of stuff. So they can do internal things, they play games, they do all the youth discussion stuff, but it's got all the other stuff around it. And we've been running it since July, and we now have regularly about 25 kids coming, and they really didn't think they thought over a period of about 2 years they get about 30, 35, and they actually reached that like during the summer months last year. In addition to that, we've got Temple Cloud Cricket Club moved to our recreation ground as well, and they run cricket activities from very little all the way up to adults, and they've got lots of girls teams as well now as well, so they actually are pretty much serving the community on a lot of different levels. Softball, hardball. Football club also does a lot of age ranges, and obviously they're right on the A37 as well, so they're slightly accessible for some people on that edge of the Chew Valley. But I think this is the thing, it's youth provision is a very spotty thing. It really depends on when you've got a parish council that's forward thinking, shall we say. So we've got one, I think Timsbury has a bus, but ours is actually in our hall, and that's usually when they like to have youth provisions in an actual hall, because it allows them that sort of space. But the buses are quite good as well if you've got the space around them, and it sounds like we have in Bishop Sutton. I think there's sort of a piece of work there. I know that the parish, I kind of took it to all my parishes because there is Sam Plummer, wasn't it, came to these Connect Southwest, came to Parish Daisy meeting last year before must have actually. And so that really raised the awareness for me because I wasn't aware like that what it cost and what it involved. And we had a really good conversation. So I think it's probably a wide piece of work to perhaps talk to parish councils, and they may want to work together to fund that provision, because I think it's not going to be sustainable for every single village to have, or parish to have its own. But I think actually if you work together, you can find central locations which are really key to that. But I know some parent house, they don't understand. They think it's just a big burden on their preset, and they don't see actually what it gives their community. But what you're there for is parent council, giving something to your community.
As you say, changing attitudes.
Yeah.
David.
Just to follow up on that, so we have a Chew Valley Ward, and across the ward, there are lots of clubs, lots of younger people, children prefer to be involved with fire clubs now these days. So we're literally 100 yards from one of the most successful clubs around, the rugby club, and all sorts of teams. And as Gareth has outlined, there's lots of these clubs, including the base of activity here. Some village halls have, for instance, karate clubs and things like that. So there is a ballet, yeah, yeah. So there is a fair amount of provision. There's probably more than we all know, actually. It would be quite an interesting piece of work to actually find out what it is, because probably they're also partly working in isolation as well.
I think a lot of it's cost, isn't it? Because if you provide youth provision, it's usually free for those kids to attend. They don't pay because the parish is picking up the cost of the provision of the service. So therefore it allows those that are on the low end of the income scale to not have to feel that they can't afford to travel and then do the activity at a cost of minimum of £5 a week or whatever it is, which is actually quite a lot to a lot of families. So I think that's where the youth provision really comes into its own, but also we're trying to encourage the cricket team to actually offer sort of some taster sessions so that kids can get involved in that if they want to, and maybe we can find a way to how that can then be funded as well, in terms of if there are people who can't afford regular sessions, how can that be funded and actually get involved in that?
Because there's a system, isn't there? What's it called? Star Cricket?
Yes, All Stars, yeah, All Stars and Dynamos, yeah.
That's brilliant.
I think there is a charge for something, yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's minimal, but it adds up, I guess, if you've got 7 kids and then we want to get involved.
I'm not fairly sure that most of the parishes in this ward haven't really engaged in the manner that you describe, and it's a really interesting idea, actually. And so I think finding out a bit more about Valley Ward, per se, about there is. Given
I mean, I think it is basically what Heather was saying as well. It's a change. You have to look at these things with totally different view. And I think that's what councils get a bit stuck in a rut as to what. And actually, it's that how you actually do spending the money it actually creates within a community or cross community. So I think sometimes in the kind of day-to-day kind of like just doing the stuff that everyone has to do, a lot of that gets pushed out to science. But if you kind of try and focus back in on that, it's really useful. But it is a challenge, and I appreciate some longer standing members of parish councils may be reluctant to do so. And I use my words carefully there, but it's true. You know, we all have those people.
If I may make one last point, Banes, every school hall, etc., makes offers for holiday activity like that, and they were so taken up out here. But for people who qualified, it was kind of families with kids on free school meals, etc., that those offerings are basically gone because the take up was so full. Now that may be a reflection of the relative wealth of the ward, but that's not to say that there aren't kids and families who need it. I think there are 200 or thereabout children who get qualified for preschool meals within the ward, and clearly, obviously, there are families who's just missed that threshold would also be struggling.
There's also stigmas around things, and people won't turn up because they don't identify themselves as being in lower income bands, and that's a worry as well. Yeah, so it actually it's something that discourage people and get
great if it was open. Yes, to everybody. Yeah.
Because you'll always, yes, if you don't over everyone, you'll always get people who can afford it, but you'll also bring along the people that can't, and that's actually, it's more inclusive, and that's kind of the way you have to look at it.
Yeah, what you want society to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think I wanted to say something, and I'm aware of it.
Yeah, I was going to say we could take an action away to start that sort of mapping exercise to try and get at least something started in the parishes, and at least we can share it, and then obviously it's something that we can build on. So we'll start that and then share it.
Is it a separate for parish liaisons?
Yeah,
because then you'll get actual parish people as well, and you'll get their views. So you'll see people who come from parish councils, and you'll get the view of how flexible they are in terms of considering this.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the parish council last week, and the subject of badgers came up because there'd been a presentation at Stoke Parish Council about badgers. And then I was asking them about badgers, and I was actually asking them about the beasts. But apparently there are these beautiful badgers which are below cubs or whatever, and I had no idea. You know, so you know, there is lots out there that we don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Can I just say, I think there is an Instagram directory. I think it's called Dig the Valley. Where somebody has tried to capture all the offers that are out there.
And I think that would be useful, because I think one village doesn't know what's happening in another village.
No, and that's why, and this is a really
brilliant, especially as there's a bus to it.
Yeah, no, that's a really helpful starting point. Thank you, Jackie. Can I just draw it to a close now and thank all of our speakers. Importantly, thank all of you for your contributions and your time. Sorry that we've overrun, but I think it's been just a really good evening. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mark, for the technical background.